What's going on, everyone? It's Bars, and welcome back to the weekend forecast. Sorry, it's a bit late today. I had to just do a couple of things before I went live. So, thank you for being here and thank you for watching. So we'll get into stuck in everything to do with the weekend forecast. Make sure you get your questions in as well. I'll be answering them later in the show. We'll also be going through every game as usual and get set for round 16. So let's get set. Also, if you're new around here, make sure you leave a like on the video if you're enjoying the content and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. There's always very much appreciated. So round 16, we had a bit of carnage yesterday morning. Sam Doherty out for probably the remainder of the season with a syndesmosis injury. So potentially that could be good for a couple of other players, but that's, as I always say, a bit of the sick warn dog there, looking at the guys like Nick Newman and a guy like Liam Stocker I'm playing on my field at the moment. Good for those guys, but obviously forced trade for a lot of people. And Lockie Neal as well is the other one that we're not sure if he's actually going to be playing or not. And so apologies for dogs barking in the background. It's just that's what happens with dogs. Bloody hell! Don't get more than a dog, one dog or two dogs, because it's just got three. Sister's got a dog. Parents got, mum's got two dogs. So it's just it's a bit annoying. Anyway, we're not here to talk about dogs. We're here to talk about AFL fantasy. But yeah, Lockie Neal is probably he's in the team, and I don't know if he's going to play. Apparently, it's just a calf niggle, but that mixed with the shoulder injury, it would be smart to give him a rest. They're playing Adelaide, and being a Crows fan, I think Brisbane will win quite comfortably. But we do have a knack of beating top 8 sides at Adelaide, obviously. You never know. There's a bit of hope. But yeah, so we had a Thursday night game last night, so we'll get stuck into that. So, but yeah, just keeping on Lockie Neal news. You might be a late withdrawal. But Thursday night football wasn't the most enjoyable game to watch, actually. It was quite a sloppy game. Just Richmond kept turning over, and Gold Coast turned over sometimes, but they, more often than not, they did take their chances, and Gold Coast deserved to win the game. They're a better team. Took Miller. He's insane, isn't he? 141 points last night with 36 touches, 7 tackles and 7 marks. He's the perfect player that you want in fantasies. He's so evenly balanced in terms of outside and inside. He gets the ball on the outside, marks the ball, but he's also really gone the inside, tackles, gets contested possessions. He does everything, and his work rate is amazing. I don't think there's a player in the AFL that's many players in the AFL that got a better work rate than him, because he just runs around everywhere. He's just nuts. He's way too expensive, I think, for fantasy now. He's near 900k. He might even be pushing that now. I think he went down a few K last week. Didn't quite get the one over the 121 he needed to. But yeah, he's just insane. If you've got him, kudos to you, and he'll continue to deliver for you, because his work rate just makes him perform that much better than everyone else. So yeah, great player. And if you had him VC, you 100% you take that. You don't even chance it with anyone else. Even though McRae could go big, Hall could go big against the Dogs. You could have guys like Gorn go big, but you take the 141. You really do. Or Bond. I should have said Bond because he's number one captain option this week. But yeah, any of those could go big. But you just take Touk Miller's score. And then besides that, it's a bit of a dog's breakfast, to be honest. You had some guys that got hundreds that might have been good for like draft teams. Like maybe if you got a Fiorini off the waiver wire, maybe you got in Ainsworth or Brandon Ellis. If you've got a few club fantasy coaches who've got him rolling around their midfield, but if you've got him in draft, obviously it's good for you guys get that 100-point score to start the round. But besides that, it was more disappointing guys that scored. So like Matt Rao got 71, had a good third quarter. He scored 34 points the third quarter. He's been playing all right. He's slowly working his back in. I personally don't think he'll be an option this season. I think that we got to remember he's only played about 10 games in his career over across for a couple of years. So we've got to remember that. Anthony, what's up, mate? Yeah, what's up? How you doing? Thanks for tuning in. If you've got any questions, put them in the live chat, and I'll make sure I answer them a bit later on. But yeah, so we'd raise obviously under 450k now. I wouldn't be looking at him, as I said, as an option. I just think that unless he can produce a couple of hundreds back to back and we see something, Gold Coast got a bit of a tougher run as well. I don't think it's a worry for Touk Miller, but for other guys in Gold Coast, I think you probably want to move them on if you've got anyone. But I don't think many people got anyone really besides a guy like Markov or Brandon Ellis or someone like that. But yeah, Matt Rao will be a good option, I think, in 2022 when he's probably discounted from missing a fair portion of the season and not scoring as well. Dusty Martin, 69, it's just not really good enough. He's quite. I love Dusty. I love watching him play. He's obviously one of the greatest of all time. But he as a fantasy commodity, he isn't the best to watch because he doesn't mark, he doesn't tackle, and you're relying on 30 possessions or more, and you're relying on a couple of marks, a couple of tackles, and then maybe a goal or two to get you 100. Which you want you like Pendlebury's a little bit the same, a little bit handball happy last game, but I think he's got more of a chance of getting 100 than what Dusty has. And after this week, he's got Collingwood next week. Then he's got Brisbane and Geelong after that back-to-back. That's 2 tough games. He's struggled against those 2 teams already this season. I may look to move him on for a guy like Dangerfield if I don't bring him in this week or someone of that ilk in a couple of weeks because, I don't know if he's going to – and he's got a De Boer tag in the fantasy finals as well. So, just not as good an option as probably what we thought. And I still love Dusty. I still love watching him play, but probably as a fantasy guy on my team, probably I may look to move him on. So that's just saying. But if I've got other pressing issues, then it's not a necessity. But if I in a perfect world, I would like to move him on after next week against Collingwood. Jaden Short 65. It looked like he got tagged a bit by Sexton on the way out of Richmond's defence. But when Gold Coast were going forward, so when Richmond trying to move the ball forward out of defence, when they were defending, he looked like he was doing like a man marking on Rankin, which was quite odd. Maybe Broad being out means that he's got to do more of a lockdown role, potentially. That's something to watch next week against Collingwood. And if that's the case, then I think you've got to move him on as well. So, so Richmond don't really have a lot of consistent fantasy options at the moment, which has always been their way anyway. But we think Short and Dusty have been pretty good. But, that's something to just keep an eye on anyway. Well, that's from the perspective I saw the game. So I obviously watched the players a bit more closely. And that's what he looked like doing. So Jeremy Sharp, 62, good recovery from being on 18 at half time. If you've got him as emergency loophole on your bench, I think you take that over a guy like Newcombe or Bianco or anything like that. 62 is not a bad score from a rookie. I was contemplating bringing him in. I didn't end up going for him, which in the end wasn't a bad thing, but it wasn't the worst thing. It wasn't a bad thing, wasn't the best thing either. So sort of a bit of a mixed 62s, right in a bit of a middle. If you got like 100, obviously it would have been like, well, I should have brought him in. If you got a 50 or below, I would have said, well, that's fine. I'm sort of glad I didn't bring him in. And then Shai Bolton, 55, he's sort of fallen off a cliff last couple of weeks. He's got back-to-back 50s now. So if you've got him, he's probably going to start bleeding cash now. I think his break-even was about 124, I think it was. So he's going to start going down in price. So I'd look to move him on. So we'll get stuck into the other games. Also, if you're watching live, make sure you get questions and answer them a bit later and like and subscribe to the channel if you can. It'd be very much appreciated. Also, make sure you catch up on all the AFL news on the AFL app and listen to all the podcasts and stuff, getting ready for round 16. So Geelong, Essendon at GMHBA later on tonight. So the team news, so you got Brian Myers and Reece Stanley coming to the team. Sean Higgins has been managed. O'Connor has been injured. Well, is injured. And Asava Radigalia has been managed. So I think Stanley coming in is a good thing for Geelong. I think he's their best ruckman regardless of if they can get consistency out of him, just personally, that's what I think. Tom Cutler and Will Snelling come in for the Bombers. Matt Guelphy has been dropped. David Zarakis was the Medi sub last week, and Brandon Zerk-Thatcher has also been dropped. So quite a few people in this game actually watching. So Dangerfield's the first one. He's one of 2 options I'm potentially looking at bringing in this week. Dangerfield, I think, is a great option to bring in. He's breaking, I think, 108 or 111. So he's starting to sort of bottom out in price. He's probably maybe got 1 more week left, potentially going down. He could even get that this week. So this might be the cheapest you can get him. Top 6 forward, I think, from here to the end of the season, I think he'll comfortably average 95. He got 94 against Brisbane last week. Brisbane are quite restrictive, and he did it when they were very, very poor. And he didn't play a lot of midfield. So the upside there, I think, is quite good. So 640 for Danger, I think, is a good price. Sam Menegola, I'm still keen on, with Duncan being out, playing off of a wing, looks to be getting up to the ground, but just he didn't really get the ball last week because I think just every Geelong player really last week, besides Cam Guthrie, was pretty poor. So I think it was one of the worst performances I've seen by a team this season. So I don't think you can read too much into last week, but I think Menegol's still a good option, potentially under 600K. He's averaged over 100 in the past doing this role. So just a guy to keep an eye on anyway. Isaac Smith, still a similar boat, but except he's a defender, he's a mid forward, and you can bring him in your forward line. So I think he's not a bad option to bring in. And yeah, pretty much exactly what I said with Menegola. I think everyone was bad last week, but the thing is, he still got 90 last week. I think he got 93 or something. So I think he'll be a solid forward for you to bring in, and you can save obviously 150K from getting him instead of a guy like Josh Kelly or or whatever. When it's like, is it probably going to be? It's going to be within 20 points or so. So just something to think about anyway. Zach Merritt, Darcy Parish, O'Connor being out frees them up. You won't worry about Tab. I'd be worried about putting him as a VC option just because Geelong are restrictive, especially at GMHBA. So I don't think you'll be seeing a 140 plus from them. I hope you do. I hope you'll see a 140 plus from them, especially Merrick. I got him. And Parish, for those owners as well, I think they'll be hoping for a big score as well. But I'd just be wary about putting in VC. You can always do guys like this as VCs because you can take the risk and see what happens because not many people are going to do it. So you can go against the grain a bit and maybe get a leg up on people. But then obviously if they fail, then you've obviously got to back in the one guy. But it's not a bad option to go as a VC, but I'll be going for a guy like Max Gawn or something like that tomorrow as in the first game. Jake Stringer, very risky option, very risky, but it could pay off for you in a big way. Breaking to only 27, he's 526, 136 and 97 his last two, I think it is. So it's a viable play, especially if you've got a guy like Tom Phillips or like a Poulter or someone in your forward line you're upgrading and you can't get up to a Dangerfield or Pendlebury, or if you did bring in a Dusty or something last night, it's a viable play. De Goey's in the same boat who I was talking about when I was talking in the Collingwood game, but yeah, String, it's risky because he hasn't shown the consistency, but it could be his time. He's playing a lot more midfield. He's playing, I think, 80-85% CBA's last couple of weeks. So just keep an eye on him. I think he could be an option. I'm probably going to wait this week and watch him this week if he plays well. He's got the Crows North in the next two. So they could be saying, but I may be swayed the fact that he's playing tonight and I might just want to get him in. But I think I would go just, but we'll see. And Jordan Ridley's another one I'm still looking at. Again, sort of in that, there's a few defenders around that price that are quite cheap. Ridley will be solid. I think he's probably maxed at about 100 points. I don't think he's going to go 110, 120 like he was early in the season because you've got Redmond, you've got Heppel, you've got Hind, you've got all those guys back there taking like a couple of kick-ins. He takes the majority of kick-ins, Ridley, but Heppel gets a lot more of the plus sixes. Hines still does get involved. He's been a bit quiet last few weeks, but he still gets involved. So I don't know if Ridley's going to go 120 plus. So I think he's maxed, but he's still a very good option for around his price, still 566, I think it is. So he's a good option to bring in, and I wouldn't hesitate in bringing him in. So there you go. So first game tomorrow, Melbourne Giants at the MCG. Nathan Jones out injured for Melbourne. No outs for Melbourne. No ins for Melbourne at this stage, and I don't think there will be. Obviously, without there's a late change. The Giants bring in Tom Green and Shane Mumford, and Kieran Briggs has been dropped. So for a few people rocking with him on the bench, he's dropped. And if you've got him on your field, I probably wouldn't be having him on your field at this point of the year if you can help it anyway. But obviously, you need to move him off of your field. Sam Reed's been dropped, and Matt DeBoer has been dropped. So that's big for the first player I'm going to talk about, who I've got in my team, who I'm convinced I've cursed him. I'm convinced I've cursed him. He's Clayton Oliver. I've owned him for 3 weeks. An 86, an 80, and 93 is what he's dished up for me. And he went under 200, under 100 2 times before I brought him in. And both those games have got a bit of a reason why, because he got tagged by the ball the first time when he went under 100, and he went bananas in the second half and he got like 50, 60 points. And then the other game was against North Melbourne. That was a bit of a weird game. Only 2 people went over 100, and it was just North Melbourne played really well that game, and Oliver just didn't really get the time and space he needed to score well. But hopefully this week, with no De Boer at the MCG, he can bounce back, because I need him to bounce back. Because, as I said, I'm convinced I've cursed him, so hopefully that curse could be lifted and he could get 100. Because he's going down in price. He's going to be very affordable for a lot of other coaches. So personally, I don't want that, because I could have waited. I could have brought in Bonampelli for about 20k cheaper at the time. I think I bought Oliver in round 12. Or I could have brought in Mitchell for about 40k less. So just, those options, and they've gone bananas since they've gone over 120. It's literally both of them gone over 120 every week since I've had Oliver. So bit of salt in the wound. But anyway, Christian Salem, another option I'm looking at. Very interested in him, actually. If you take out when he got injured, the 2 games after when he sort of worked his way back, he didn't look the same when he came back. But besides that, he's only gone under 80 on 2 occasions. That was round 1 when he got 66, and then he got like a 76 or something early in the year as well. But besides that, and he's got a ceiling. He's gone 141, I think, against Richmond on Anzac Eve game. He's gone by 112 or 119. Was it a one? No, just those 3. But he's got another couple of hundreds there as well. But he can go big, which is what you want with your defenders. So, and he's been consistent 90 plus for pretty much the majority of the year. So I think he's a good option, 641. I'd prefer him over a guy like Hearn, who potentially could Paul McCarthy at any point. I love Hearn. I think he's been very, very good. 300s in a row. He's been a great option. But I would prefer a guy like Salem, bit unique as well. Could be a difference to maybe get your leg up with a pod. It's not, and I don't think it's really a risky pod either. I think it's a good pod to bring in. Nick Kane's still value as well at 5.56. It's gone over 90 in his last 3 games. But Lockie Ash coming in. Does Lockie Ash take a few more of those +6 off of Haynes? I've always been a bit worried about Haynes because I owned him last year and he can dish up a 40 or a 50 at any point if he doesn't take those marks, especially if it's a wet weather day. He's not going to get those marks all the time. So for me, it's still risky. I prefer Nick Newman over him, who I'm probably bringing in this week. I'd probably prefer Haynes over Ridley at this point because at least Haynes can go big. But I think you can find potentially, like, if you want to bring in Haynes, it's fine. It's probably me just saying that I'm just trying to convince myself that Haynes is a good option when he actually is. But yeah, you can bring Haynes in 5.56k if you haven't done it already. If you need a cheap defender, Adelaide, Brisbane, only game outside Melbourne this week. So obviously with all the COVID stuff going on, obviously they've all moved over to Melbourne. Billy Frampton, Nick Newman, and Luke Pedler making his debut. Quite excited as a Crows fan to see what he can bring. Darcy Fogarty's been dropped. I don't understand why we keep dropping him as a Crows fan. Will Hamill's been dropped as well, although he played well last week. Shane McAdam's been dropped, and Andrew McPherson's was the medic subs. He's out of the squad. Or he might be in the emergencies, but he's just out there. And for the blind, Jared Berry's finally back for Brisbane. Been a while. He's obviously been out for quite a while, so good to see Jared Berry back. Interesting to see what he does to the mix of like your Dane Zorko, your Jared Lyons, and if Lockie Neal plays guys like that. I think he'll be fine, but I think they will be fine. Sorry. And Grant Birchall comes in. James Madden out for a couple of weeks with fractured hand, I think it was that I read. Reece Matheson has been. It was the Medi sub, and Jackson Pryor has also been dropped. Ryan Lockie Ash isn't in the team, isn't he? Really? I thought he was. Hang on, let me have a quick look at that. If he isn't, then I'll have to make sure I fix that. But I swear I saw that Lockie Ash was in the team. I thought, but not a big deal if he is or not. But I thought he was. No, he is, Ryan. So. He is. If you look, he's on the back pocket. So I thought I was correct. So good. I'm glad. I'm sort of happy I'm correct and didn't look like an idiot. So Rory Laird, the guy I'm looking at during this game, not looking at in terms of bringing him in because pretty much everyone's got Laird in. If you don't have Laird in, I'd be bringing him in because he's been ultra consistent. I'm about to say uber consistent. Still works. Yeah, and I think he played well this week. Sloan is still in the team as well. So if anyone didn't see it as well, so he was obviously had a tendon injury that he might have kept him out for the rest of the year. And Matt Nix said on Monday night on AFL 360 that it looked quite nasty, but he's still in the team. He's a tough warrior, isn't he, Rory Sloan? And it could be good for Laird because personally, if I was an opposition coach anyway, I think I'd tag Laird because I think Laird can be quite dangerous. But I think a team still tags Sloan because he's the barometer. I think a bit of the Crows. Whenever he's up and about, Crows are always playing quite well, I think. But yeah, I still think Sloan's Laird's a great option. He's not a bad option for a VC either because he can go 140. We've seen it before, so it could be big. Luke Pedler, I wouldn't be considering as a fantasy option. He's 250k. Ryan, sorry, is yep. Thank you very much. It's all right. Ryan's my best mate, so I know exactly what why he's sorry. There you go. So yeah, Luke Pedler, 250k. Yeah, unless he gets like an 80 plus score, like a big score, I don't think we can consider him as a fantasy option. He's probably going to play forward as well. Might drift potentially up the ground a bit more, but yeah, I think he'd be a little bit similar to Jimmy Rowe, probably maxed out about 60, 70 points. So yeah, probably a pass on that one for fantasy option. And Lockie Neal, just keep an eye out to see if he's in the team come tomorrow, an hour before the game, because I don't know if he will be. If he is, he's again, he's a tough bugger as well. He's a tough warrior, Lockie Neal, and I think all his coach will be hoping he is. Obviously, you don't want him to play though and get injured on like less than 20, because then he's going to obviously drop a lot more in cash, and you got a 20 on your field. So it could be a wise move to move him on potentially and just see what happens. You can bring in someone a decent option, but I just keep Neal, but it's just something, just a viable play you can probably think about as well. Fremantle Carlton, GMHBA tomorrow night. I was hoping this to be on like a Monday night and sort of an extra day for the footy, but I'm actually working Monday night, so it's not actually too bad. I won't miss the footy, but I thought it would have been a smarter idea, but it's all right. I don't do the fixtures. Team like so Freo, so Nat Fyfe comes into the side. back after that shoulder injury. Mitch Croden as the Medi sub is out of the squad, and Matt Taberner has been injured as well. Carlton, Levi Casbolt and Tom Williamson come into the side. Doherty, as mentioned before, is injured and potentially out for the rest of the season. Mark Murphy's been injured on his road to 300 games. See if he gets there. I'm not sure if he will at this stage. Zach Williams has been suspended. So there you go. So Nat Fyfe, just keep an eye on him. He's under 670 as a forward. It's very risky because of the shoulder injury. So I don't know exactly if that means he's a good option to bring in the next few weeks. But just see if he gets his shoulder injury, if he can get you a couple of 100 scores, then he could potentially be an option. But I would probably steer clear at this stage. But just something to keep an eye on because we've seen that Fyfe's been good in the past. But with this injury, I'm not sure. Nick Newman, good option to bring in. No Doherty for now, probably for the rest of the year. I'm not trying to rub salt in the wounds for Doherty owners. I'm just saying that Nick Newman, you could go Doherty down Nick Newman, pocket yourself like 120, 130 cars, I think it is roughly off the top of my head. And that could be put on top of a rookie. And you can get someone like maybe potentially like a guy like DeGoey or even better. But yeah, Nick Newman, 111 points in 3 quarters last week, came on at quarter time and went bananas. So I think he's a good option. We've seen him do well in the past, and I'm probably bringing him in at this stage, Nick Newman. So, yeah, jump on. I think I'd prefer him over Ridley, and I would personally prefer him over Nick Haynes. I think a lot of people are probably saying Nick Haynes is probably better. I just prefer Nick Newman because I think Nick Newman can go a lot bigger than what Nick Haynes can. So just something to keep an eye on, but I think he's a better option. And Matt Kennedy, another option you can put into the same conversation as Stringer and DeGoey. Matt Kenny, he's probably going to be more consistent, I think. He's probably going to consistently hit your 90, but is he going to stay in the team? Is he going to stay injury-free? Is this role going to continue? That's pretty much all the questions you need to be asking. And it can, because his break-even still low. I think it's 50 or whatever. But obviously, DeGoey and Stringer's break-evens is 27 and 34. So 27 for Stringer, 34 for DeGoey. I'd prefer those two. But if you want to go again against the grain and do something a bit unique, I think Matt Kenny's not a bad option. He's a little bit cheaper as well than both of them. So you can definitely bring him in. Hawthorn, Port Adelaide. Sean Burgoyne's 400th game. I mentioned congrats to him. Only one of 5 players now in AFL VFL history to hit 400 games. So it's an incredible achievement, being a champion player. Silk. So good luck to him on the weekend. And we'll see if Hawthorn get over Port. I don't know if they will, but you never know. They're at Marvel. And Hawthorn have been very, very good defensively over the last few weeks. So just something to watch on Saturday night. So Damon Greaves and Connor Nash come in for Hawthorn. Will Day injured. Denver Granger obviously got custody in his first game. Poor bloke. And Chad Wingard was also injured with a, hamstring tightness, I think it was. Port Adelaide, Riley Bonner comes in to the side. Martin Frederick and Dylan Williams have both been dropped. So if you had Williams floating around on your bench, he could potentially be a guy like a Rantel or a Roses or someone on your bench. Now it's only going to be about 180K and not play maybe because you got a guy like Fantasia who's still got to come into the side as well. And Robbie Gray, I think, is out for a majority of the home and away season. But if he came back in, that would obviously just put Dylan Williams back down the pecking order. But yeah, Tom Mitchell has been very, very good against Port. I think he's averaged over 120 his last 4 against them, which I had Calvin say on the podcast last night. So make sure you go and check that if you haven't already. He's been bananas last 3 weeks, over 120 last 3 weeks, 139 last week. So he's starting to really get piggish. He's starting to really look like the Tom Mitchell that we saw a couple of years ago. Get you those 120 plus scores on a regular basis. So if you want to bring him in, I think he's a great option to bring in. I know he's 828K, but I think he's still very, very viable to bring in. Sean Burgoyne, as I said, also Tom Mitchell's got a great fantasy final schedule as well. He's got Adelaide in round 20, Collingwood round 21, Bulldogs round 22, a little bit tougher, but I think it's Tom Mitchell. He's the pig. I think he can play well against really anyone. We've seen Australia against easier teams, so it doesn't necessarily mean he's going to score, but I think he'll be fine. And then Richmond in the final. So I think it's a great 3 of the last 4 games are great, besides the Bulldogs. But as I said, can still score well. As I said, Sean Burgoyne, congrats for 400 games. Obviously not as a fantasy option or anything like that now, but congrats to him. Only Brent Harvey, Michael Tuck, Kevin Barlow and Dustin Fletcher are the only other 4 people to do it. So he's joining a very exclusive club. So congrats to him. And Dan Houston, still an underpriced option as well. 4 good scores in a row now. Only every score's been over 86 and only 1 score under 90, which was at 86. So still good and has got a decent run from here to the end of the season. So you can bring him in with confidence. And then Sydney West Coast, GMHBA. I think this is where we move to Sunday. So what I'll do, I'll move to the AFL app here and I'll get up the lineups to see. Foley potentially being in for West Coast would be very interesting for my trades. That could come into a scenario. So, and he is in. Foley is in. So Wicks has come into the side. Caden Brand is out, been dropped, and Road Bottom has been managed. And then West Coast make 5 changes. So you've got Zach Langdon, Nathan Vardy, Luke Foley, Alex Witherden, and Jermaine Jones come into the side. And then you've got Jack Petrocelli has been dropped. Josh Rotham's been dropped. Jackson Nelson's been dropped. Liam Rhymes suspended. Luke Edwards has been dropped, and Jake Waterman's been dropped. So, Luke Foley now becomes a real interesting option. He's got a break even of -24 or -23 or something. So he becomes a really interesting option. I could bring him in for a guy like Kaczynski on my bench and bring in Danger, and then I can just watch a guy like Newman and that this week and just make sure that they're the real deal. That's a viable play. That's something I'm going to have to think about now. But Shanahan anyway. We'll get back on this game. So Shanahan's been good last 3 weeks, gone over 100. He's been really good this year. Besides, really when he got injured. So he's a good option to bring in. As I said, I'd prefer Dangerfield at the exact same price if you can get a defender or a forward. But if you get just a defender, I'd prefer Salem for 1K cheaper. And I think guys like Newman and Ridley and Haynes and guys like that, you could potentially bring in instead. You save yourself about nearly 100K with all those guys, and they potentially will be. They've got less of an injury history than what Hearn has, except maybe Nick Newman. He's got injured a few times, but hopefully not. Andrew Gaff. Being an Andrew Gaff owner and lover, it's painful to watch every week. It really is a roller coaster, and I don't know if I could select him in the same squad again. The only reason I select him was because Tom Rockcliffe was a late out on the Saturday, and I started with Rockcliffe, and I had him or Jack Steele, and I went Gaff over Steele, which obviously shouldn't have now because Steele's obviously very, very good in top 8 midfielder and Gaff's far from it. But Gaff's getting cheap. If you're looking at a cheap midfielder, he's gone 5 games under 100 now. He got 99, but doesn't count. He still didn't get over 100. Back-to-back 70s as well. Not a great matchup last week. Bulldogs are quite tough for midfielders in general to score on, and he got hit in the head and it was rain or whatever. But I feel like I make excuses for Gaff every week, but I try and paint a picture to think that he's still fine to keep in my team. But he's cheap. If you see something from him this week, you can bring him in. He's got a good run. He's got 4 games that are easy in a row. He's got the Crows. He's got North Melbourne, I think, and he's got another couple of games off the top of my head. Can't think off the top of my head what 4 games he's got, but they got West Coast got 4 easy games in a row to come up. So let's just see if he can score well, and we might be able to bring him in. And then Luke Shuey, Tim Kelly, and Elliot Yeo, all keeping on, all 3 in this week. They're in the exact same boat. If you see something from them, they got good 4 or 5 weeks, so you can bring him in up till the fantasy finals. I'm especially looking at a guy like Tim Kelly, got a break in of 150 due to being injured on 33 against Essendon and then coming back last week for only a 36. Not a great score, but if he can produce that next few weeks, I think under 600K, he's going to be probably 570, 560, maybe even 550 or below. He's a lot better player than 570K. So, especially with a good run count, I think he could be a viable player to bring in the team. Same with Brad Shepherd. Brad Shepherd's 493 or 483. I think it's 493. Scored 105 last week. And if you take out his game where he got only a 6, I think he only had 1 poor score in his last 6 games, I think. So just if you don't have enough money to get to a Haynes or a Newman or something like that, and you want to bring someone in, I think Shepherd's not the worst option in the world at all. And especially with a decent run coming up, I think he could do a job. Especially you want to go like Highmore or a Poulter, and you want to get a defender, and you can go them up. You've only got about 100K. Matt Kennedy's only about 10K more. I probably prefer Matt Kennedy, but if you can't afford Matt Kennedy, I think Shepherd's probably the best option under that. So I think Shepherd's the cheapest option. I think he's not a bad option. If you've got more money, I would look a bit higher. So Collingwood, St Kilda. So again, I'll do the same. I'll go to lineups here. So Jordan De Goey comes into the squad. So De Goat is back in, which we knew was happening. And Callum Brown is out of the squad as the medi sub. And McCreary has been injured. Then you've got Jack Billings is in. And Nick Caulfield has been injured. And Battle's been dropped. So that means that Connolly's in the squad. Connolly is in the squad, and he's on the bench. So, again, another interesting downgrade option, 189K. You can bring him on your bench. I don't know about his job security long term, but he showed scoring potential. He scored 53 and I think, about a quarter? He went absolutely nuts in the last quarter. So, and I watched it as well. And I was like, I want Highmore to get involved in this, not as much Connolly, but he played really well last week and is a viable downgrade option now, the fact he's in the squad. So, De Goey, as I said, as well, good option. 3 games in a row been very good. He's probably, at the moment, he's in my trades. I'm bringing him in, but I'm just worried if he comes back. I know Elliott's back and he plays more midfield when Elliott's at the team, but is it going to continue? I had to go at the start of the year and it was a struggle to watch. 515K though, there's less risk, and I'm going Poulter up to him, so it only cost me about 20 odd K, and I think he's a better player than Poulter. I still love watching Poulter play, but a 44 has sort of stunted his growth in price, and I think that he'll be good. I think he's got a good few games coming up as well to go. So I think he's a good option to bring in. There is just risk attached to it as well, so just beware of that. The GOAT is not all as it seems. Brody Grundy. Ruck pig, you need ruck pig in. Simple as that. You need the ruck pig in. I held him. I made that decision quite early on, as I mentioned last week. And at least I'm just going to not have to worry about bringing him in, because it's quite difficult to bring him or Gawn if you don't have him in, because there's so much money, unless you got a Darcy or O'Brien. But then again, it's like, is it really a necessity to upgrade them? It's about a 20-point upgrade for O'Brien, maybe a 10 or 15-point upgrade for Darcy, because Darcy's going to about 95, 100. You got a poor score last week. But yeah, if you've got guys like Phillips and if you got Darcy, you got Phillips, you can just put Darcy forward and go Phillips to Grundy. But it's not an absolute necessity. But I think Grundy is a necessity. But to go Darcy or O'Brien up, you don't trade Darcy, and to go O'Brien up is not a necessity. So, but yeah, if you can get Grundy in, great pick. Taylor Adams as well, good return last week, 116 again. I just want to see another game or two. He's still got a break in of 108, so he can still score hundreds, and we can see what he's doing and make sure he's fit and he's good. And then we can think about bringing him in. But I just want to watch him first for a few weeks, see that he's fine. But 723K, can average over 110. We've seen it before. Great option to bring in. Final game of the round, Bulldogs and North Melbourne at Marvel. Twilight game. So again, I'll go to the app here and look at the teams here. So Lewis Young comes into the squad for the Bulldogs, and Ryan Gardner out injured, and Mitch Wallace out as the Medi sub. And then for North Melbourne, Kyron Hayden comes in. Lockie Young's been omitted, and Atu Bosunavalagi has been dropped out of the squad as the Medi sub. So this game, there's not too much to watch in this game. Obviously, you got guys like McRae, probably a lot of, if your vice captain fails, probably a lot of people's captains coming home. If you're lucky enough to have Marcus Bontempelli, which I wish I had the chance to have him, as I've mentioned before, has been nuts. He hasn't gone under 100 in his last 10. He hasn't gone under 120. 120 is his lowest score in his last 5 games. He's absolutely unreal. He's best player in the comp at the moment. He's probably going to win the Brownlow. I think him and Oliver are high on the predictor, but I'd be saying Bont at the moment. I've got Oliver and he's not playing as well as Bont, and that goal he kicks well, insane. He's such a good player, and if you've got him in your team, well done. If you've got him and Miller in your team, you're probably going to be high up in the overall rankings. You're probably going to be in the chance for top 100 hat, because he's been insane. So if you've got him, I'd put in Captain over McRae, I think, because he's just been insane. But a lot of people don't. Riley Garcia as well, just an interesting option to keep an eye on. He's 170K. He held his spot in the squad as well. So he was out for 2 weeks. He came back and he's only scored 38, but he's a guy that you can bring in. I think he's got better job security than Connolly, I think, because even though he plays for the Bulldogs and he's got Bevo as his coach, he came in, he got concussed in his first game, was out for a couple of weeks, but then he came straight back in the side. So that for me fills him with a bit of confidence. They really like what he's doing, and they're going to keep him in the squad. They've got they dropped Mitch Wallace out of the squad for him. So just once he's basement 170K as well, even though he's played 2 games, because he obviously got concussed his first game, meaning his breaking was a bit higher. So just he could be a viable downgrade option. I think you got him. Well, now we've actually got a few downgrade options. We got him. We got Connolly from St Kilda. We got Brandon Walker from Freo, who's still 212K, still quite cheap, so you can bring him in. And you've got Luke Foley, who could be a viable guy to bring onto your field, as long as you've got backup cover, because he could get dropped in a week or 2. So just keep an eye on that. But I might consider bringing him in negative break even. So move on to the trades now as well, and then I'll my trades, and I'll go again on your questions as well. So my trades. So I'm going Hind and Newman at the moment on my field. Now I'm going Poulter to De Goey. I'm also thinking of Stringer, but I'm probably going De Goey. I'm also looking, potentially with Foley being in now, I'm looking at going Hind to Dangerfield and then going Koschitzke on my bench to Foley and keeping Poulter for a week. So I think Poulter can still score you 60 or 70 at least against St Kilda. The ball just didn't go to him at all last week. It just was on the complete other side of his wing. So then he's playing a wing. I certainly can still score you a good score. And if he got 100, then he's not a necessity to move on. But yeah, I might bring in a guy like Foley who can make me a lot of money if he stays in for 2-3 weeks. And then get rid of Poulter next week and just keep him against St Kilda. And Poulter's got, I think, Richmond next week. So he's got 2 good games in a row. Obviously, if he scored poorly this week, I would then get rid of him next week. But just something I'm thinking about. But at the moment, Newman and De Goey are the 2 guys. But Foley and Dangerfield is certainly a thing. I've got a vote on Twitter as well. So if you want to go vote on my poll on Twitter, link to my Twitter is in the description below. So only got a couple of questions here. So Adams has just asked this. He's sent me this question in through on the fantasy article on DT Talk. So if you want to read the actual article version of the weekend forecast, make sure you go on to DT Talk. Link is in the description below as well. If you want to read the full version of it and just sort of take it in a written form. So Adams asked, so hi Bailey, thoughts on these trades? So he's gone Bailey Dale and Sam Doherty to Brodie Grundy, I like that. So probably going Dale to Grundy. And then either Brad Shepherd, Jordan De Goey, or Jake String. A bit torn between Shepherd, De Goey, String. Which one would you prefer? Cheers. Out of the 3, I think you can cross off Shepherd because I think that he has got more of a chance of going a 40 than I think the other 2 are. With the role that Stringer and De Goey are playing at the moment, I think they could all go 40. We've seen that this year. But I think out of the 3 of them, I think that the role for Shepherd could potentially be a lockdown role and he could get 40. Out of De Goey and Stringer, as I mentioned before, I'd probably go De Goey purely for the fact we've seen 3 games of it and we've seen bits and De Goey looks more like a fantasy prospect in the next few years that we could potentially have in our squads. Obviously, he's doing the role we thought he was going to be playing at the start of the year. Rob Harvey's come in. The only question marks have is he going to play midfield? Even though Elliott's back, McCreary's out, do they put De Goey forward? I don't think they do. I think he plays midfield and maybe Pendles goes to a back flank or Chris goes to a wing or a back flank. So I'd prefer De Goey, but if you're a lot more risky, I think Stringer's a good option as well because Stringer's been brilliant in the last 2 weeks and there is no question that he will be playing that midfield role. Shield coming back in a couple of weeks may change that, but I'd probably think about doing that. So but yeah, so there you go. So that's pretty much it. There's no other questions coming through. So unless there's another question coming through, that's the end of the weekend forecast for the week. So if you have enjoyed the video, make sure you leave a like on the video. Make sure you check the written version, as I said, on DT Talk. Links in the video description. Social media links all in the description below as well. If you've got any other question before lockout, make sure you hit me up on my Twitter and Instagram. Links as well in the description. And yeah, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Leave a thumbs up if you enjoyed the content. Tyler, great show. Thanks, mate. Appreciate it. Appreciate you joining in and tuning in as well live. And yeah, turn your bell notification on so you know when I'm going live. I go live at 4 p.m. every Friday afternoon, Adelaide time. So 4:30 pretty much for majority of people, other people in Australia. And I'm not sure about the time in Perth. I'd imagine be about, I think it's 1:30 in the afternoon. 2.5. I think it's 2.5 hours between us and Perth. But yeah, and yeah, so make sure you get your trades set before round 16, and I'll see you guys in the next video. I'm out. Cheers.